He didn't beat the market once. He beat it twice. And still, it destroyed him. This is the story of Jesse Livermore, the trader who mastered markets, predicted crashes, and couldn't survive his own mind. His life is more than a financial lesson. It's a terrifying look at the high-wire act of genius, ego, and self-destruction. And it starts not in a boardroom, but in a place you'd never expect. Jesse Livermore didn't grow up rich. He didn't have a Wall Street family or an Ivy League education. He grew up observant. As a teenager in the late 1800s, he ran away from home with $5 in his pocket to escape a life of farming. He found work as a board boy in a bucket shop, the shady, unregulated predecessors of modern trading floors. His job, to write stock prices on a giant chalkboard. No men, no books, just chalk, numbers, and the frantic energy of people gambling on price movements while everyone else was caught up in the noise. The yelling and the ope. Jesse noticed something others didn't. Prices didn't move randomly. He saw patterns, rhythms. He realized that behind every tick up or down, there was human emotion, fear, greed, hope, hesitation. The market wasn't just numbers on a board. It was a living, breathing creature driven by the collective psychology of millions. So, while others gambled, Jesse studied. He secretly kept a small notebook, scribbling down his observations, testing his theories. He wasn't just guessing. He was developing a system, and when he finally placed his first trade, he won. Then he won again. And again. By his early 20s, he had already made and lost several fortunes, earning him the nickname the Boy Plunger. That relentless cycle of boom and bust should have been the first warning sign. But for a young man who had tasted the thrill of being right, it was just the beginning. Livermore wasn't a stock picker in the modern sense. He didn't care about a company's balance sheet or its long-term potential. He was a trend hunter, a market timer. He believed one thing above all else. The market is never wrong. Opinions are. This was his core philosophy. He didn't predict where the market would go. He reacted to where it was going. When prices showed strength and broke out, he bought. When they showed weakness and broke down, he followed the trend, and it made him a legend. By the early 1900s, Jesse Livermore was one of the richest and most feared traders in America. He made $1 million in a single day shorting the market during the panic of 1907. He was the man J.P. Morgan himself personally asked to stop shorting, fearing he would single-handedly collapse the entire financial system. He bought yachts, mansions, and lived a life of unimaginable luxury. But success didn't make him more disciplined. It did the opposite. It made him dangerously confident. And this is where the psychology of trading turns from a skill into a weapon pointed at yourself. Here's the paradox of many great traders. The very skills that make them rich, the intuition, the aggression, the unwavering self-believer. Often the same skills that eventually destroy them. Livermore trusted his instincts, and for good reason. They had made him millions. So, he started breaking his own hard-earned rules. He began overtrading, jumping in and out of positions without a clear plan. He dramatically increased his position sizes, risking a huge chunk of his fortune on a single idea. He ignored his stop losses, hoping a bad trade would turn around. Why? Because when you've been right enough times, when you've been called a genius by the entire world, you start to believe you're different. You're special, and the market punishes that belief. Every single time. Livermore lost millions. Then he painstakingly rebuilt his fortune. Then he lost it all again. Each cycle of loss and recovery made him a sharper, more intuitive trader, but it also made him more emotionally fragile. The highs were higher, but the lows were carving away at his soul. He was caught in a loop, a cycle of his own making. Then came 1929. The Roaring Twenties were in full swing. America was a non-stop party, and the stock market was its main event. Everyone was buying. Everyone was getting rich. But Jesse Livermore watched from the sidelines. The wild optimism felt wrong. The insane levels of leverage felt reckless. The price action itself felt tired. The market was struggling to make new highs. He saw the signs that everyone else, drunk on euphoria, was ignoring. So he did something few dared to do. He began to build a massive short position. He was going all in against the entire market. Friends, colleagues, even his own wife begged him to stop, telling him he was crazy to bet against America's prosperity. But Livermore trusted his reading of the tape more than he trusted popular opinion. When Black Tuesday hit and the market collapsed, the world went into shock. Fortunes were wiped out in hours. Lives were ruined. The Great Depression began. But as Wall Street burned, Jesse Livermore was calmly closing his trades. He had made an estimated $100 million. In today's money, that's billions. He didn't just predict the great crash. He profited from it on a scale that is still staggering to comprehend. The press called him a genius, a prophet, the great bear of Wall Street. He was, without a doubt, the greatest trader alive. And here's the cruel, devastating irony of his story. That moment, the moment of his greatest triumph, was the peak of his life. Everything after was a slow, agonizing descent. After 1929, Livermore never traded the same again. He had faced the abyss and beaten it. What do you do for an encore? How do you top becoming a living legend? He started chasing that feeling. He was trying to recreate the glory of his greatest trade. This led to bigger bets, faster decisions, and more pressure. Trading was no longer a game of cold, calculated strategy. It was an addiction. He needed the thrill. And when his new, reckless trades failed, he didn't just lose money. He lost a piece of his identity. Because when your entire self-worth is tied to being right, being wrong feels like a personal annihilation. He wasn't just a trader who had a bad day. He felt like a failure as a human being. Livermore lost another fortune in the great market chop of the 1930s. Then another. His personal life crumbled. He went through bitter divorces, endless legal battles, and public humiliation. The man who could read the market's mind better than anyone could unescape the one thing he never bothered to master: himself. He once wrote a profound truth. Speculation is as old as the hills. Whatever has happened in the stock market before will happen again and again. He understood that market patterns repeat. He just didn't realize his own self-destructive behavioral patterns were repeating too. In 1940, alone, depressed, and broke, Jesse Livermore checked into the cloakroom of a hotel in New York. He sat down and wrote a final note to his wife. It wasn't about money. It wasn't about the markets. It was about exhaustion. "My life has been a failure," it read. The man who had conquered Wall Street was ultimately defeated by his own psychology. He took his own life. There was no ticker-tape parade, no screaming headlines. Just a tragic, lonely silence. The ultimate lesson of Jesse Livermore is a brutal one. He didn't crash the market twice. The market survived just fine. He crashed himself. Because markets don't destroy people. Unchecked confidence does. Ego does. The dangerous belief that your past success guarantees your future survival does. Jesse Livermore proved one of the most critical truths in finance and in life. You can understand every chart, every pattern, every economic cycle, and still lose everything if you never take the time to master the mind that is placing the trade. His story is a timeless warning that the biggest risk isn't in the market, it's in the mirror. Thanks for watching. If this story resonated with you, consider subscribing for more deep dives into the minds that shaped our world. And if you or someone you know is struggling, please remember that help is available. There are resources and people who can support you. You are not alone.